Hi, I'm Miss Mandi from the B.B. Comer Library here in Sylacauga, and I'm glad you've joined me for Bluebell Storytime, our online edition. Today I've got some books about elves. You know, those are some of Santa's most important helpers. And we have one elf in our library. His name is Booker. That's a good name for a library elf, isn't it? I'd like for you to look on our Facebook page or our website, or come in and see us and see if you can see what he's gotten into. Every morning when we come into work, we look around for him and see what kind of mischief he's done. Or he doesn't do anything really bad, but we like to see if he's reading books or playing with some of our stuffed animals. We like to see what he's gotten into. So maybe you'll look and see if you can find him too. All right, the first book I want to read is The Littlest Elf. I'd like to thank the author, Brandi, and the illustrator, Kirsten Richards, and the publisher, Cartwheel Books, for allowing me to share this book with you today. The Littlest Elf. Oliver was an elf. He lived with his family in the North Pole. There were many elves in Santa's village, but Oliver was the littlest one. It was Christmas time and Oliver was excited. This year he would discover his special job at one of Santa's workshops. He just needed to visit each shop to see which one was the right fit. At the toy workshop where his mom worked, Oliver tried to make cuddly teddy bears, but he got lost in the huge stuffing pile. "Oliver?" an elf asked. Oliver's mom said, "I think you're too little for the toy workshop. Why don't you try helping your dad at the bicycle workshop instead?" So Oliver went to Santa's bicycle workshop. "I'm ready to help," he said. Oliver watched as the elves added wheels and seats and handlebars and bells. But the tools were very big for Oliver's little hands. "Maybe baking is your special job," Oliver's dad told him. "You should visit your brother at the bakery next." Off Oliver went to the bakery. These elves made sugar plum cookies and candy cane squares, but when Oliver tried to stir the cookie dough, "Oliver, look out!" one of the elves shouted. He fell into a giant mixing bowl. "Sorry, Ollie," his brother said. "You're too little for the bakery. Maybe your special job is at the bookmaker's shop." Oliver arrived at the last of Santa's workshop where his sister worked. The bookmakers there wrote amazing stories and drew wonderful pictures. "Can I help?" Oliver asked. "Of course," the elves replied. But the ink pot was kind of tough to reach and the stack of paper was very tall. "Oh, Ollie," his sister cried. Bookmaking was harder and messier than it looked. Oliver wandered through the North Pole. He was sad. Oliver knew there had to be one special job he could do, even if he was little. Then he heard the sound of hooves clattering at the stables. Inside, a herd of reindeer had gathered to meet Dot, the new reindeer. She was little, just like Oliver. Dot was very excited to help fly Santa's sleigh. She practiced for the big night by jumping and hopping and leaping, but she could not fly. The reindeer's mama gave her a gentle kiss. Dot was still too little. Dot looked very sad. Oliver wanted to cheer her up. He dug in his pockets to find a treat for Dot, but instead he found little trinkets from each workshop he had visited. Just then, he had an idea. Oliver and Dot used the tiny treasures to make ornaments, cards, and fun decorations for all the hard-working elves in the village. The littlest elf and the littlest reindeer filled a sleigh with their Christmas treats. They delivered the presents to all the workshops. The elves loved their special gifts. Soon Santa came to see what all the fuss was about. He watched as Oliver and Dot made everyone smile. Suddenly, Santa had an idea. "Oliver and Dot," he said, "with your big hearts and great Christmas cheer, won't you be my very important helpers this year?" Oliver and Dot had found their special jobs after all, but more important, they had each found a special friend. Oh, they found one of the most important things of all is helping other people, doing special things for them. All right, I have a song I want us to sing about elves. Now, this is like Five Little Monkeys Jumping on the Bed, so I think you're going to know it, but it's five little elves jumping in the sleigh. Okay, let's say, let's hold up five. Five little elves jumping in the sleigh. One falls off and slides away. Santa calls the reindeer, and the reindeer say, "No more elves jumping in the sleigh." Four little elves jumping in the sleigh. One falls off and slides away. Santa calls the reindeer, and the reindeer say, "No more elves jumping in the sleigh." Three little elves jumping in the sleigh. One falls off and slides away. Santa calls the reindeer, and the reindeer say, "No more elves jumping in the sleigh." Two little elves jumping in the sleigh. One falls off and slides away. Santa calls the reindeer, and the reindeer say, "No more elves jumping in the sleigh." One little elf jumping in the sleigh. He falls off and slides away. Santa calls the reindeer, and the reindeer say, "No more elves jumping in the sleigh." Good job. Great. Well, the first book I read was about the littlest elf. Now I want to read you about the oldest elf. All right. I'd like to thank the author, James Stevenson, and the publisher, Green Willow Books, for allowing me to share this story with you. It was almost Christmas. All night long, Santa's workshop buzzed and hummed and screeched. Colored lights flashed on and off. In the stable, the reindeer had a hard time trying to sleep. "All those lights and noises," said Prancer. "I can't get any rest at all." "How soon is Christmas Eve?" asked Donner. "Tomorrow night," said Dancer. "Thank goodness," said Prancer. In the workshop, the elves were building video games that beeped, helicopters that whined, dolls that walked and talked, fire engines that wailed, racing cars that went wherever they were told to go. "Anybody need more batteries?" said Santa Claus. The only quiet place was a room in the cellar where nobody ever went. It was the room where Elwin, the oldest elf, made toys. In Elwin's room, the sounds were soft, sandpaper smoothing the deck of a wooden boat, or a brush painting a piggy bank. Sometimes it was Elwin himself, humming a tune from long ago. "It must be getting close to Christmas," said Elwin, "and I still have lots to do." He searched for a calendar. At last he found one, but it said 1984. He went up the stairs to the workshop. "What day is this?" he called to one of the younger elves. "The day before Christmas Eve, Elwin," said one elf. "That late?" said Elwin. He put the wheels on a pedal car. He tied a ribbon on a china doll. He painted a set of blocks. He squirted oil into the wind-up toys and made sure each one had a key that worked. He fixed the strings on a wooden puppet. He tuned a small guitar. He brushed the mane and tail of a rocking horse. He polished the brass buttons on a toy soldier. He wound a toy cuckoo clock and set the hands for just before the hour. A minute later, a bird popped out and said, "Cuckoo." When Elwin was all finished, he put the toys in a sack and dragged it slowly up the stairs. The workshop was silent and deserted. Elwin put on his coat and hat. He pulled his sack outdoors and over to the stable. He saw hoof prints and the two tracks of Santa's sleigh. The tracks went a short distance, then there was just plain snow. "You missed them," said an old voice. "They left 20 minutes ago." "Who's that?" said Elwin. "It's me, Blitzen," said Blitzen. "Hello, Blitzen," said Elwin. "Did you miss them too?" "Heck no," said Blitzen. "I got too old for those last-minute rides through the night. No more on Donner on Blitzen for me." "What do they do without you?" asked Elwin. "Santa found a doe named Josephine," said Blitzen. "Now I stay home in the warm straw." "I guess you deserve a rest," said Elwin. What's in the sack? Said Blitzen. Toys, said Elwyn. I made them myself. It's a shame you missed the sleigh, said Blitzen. All that work for nothing. This is a very sad Christmas, said Elwyn, and it's all my fault. He began to walk away. Good night, Blitzen, he said. Good night, Elwyn, said Blitzen. Then he saw that Elwyn had left his sack. You forgot your toys, he called. But the wind was strong and Elwyn was too far away to hear. Snow began to fall harder. Soon the toys were half buried. After a while, they were just another lump in the snow. Elwyn was dozing in his chair when there was tapping at the window. It was Blitzen. Elwyn opened the window. Snow flew into the room. Say, Elwyn, said Blitzen, I've been thinking. I'll bet there are kids who would love to get those toys of yours. Too late now, said Elwyn. Don't be so sure, said Blitzen. Grab that toboggan and come over to the stable. When Elwyn got to the stable, the toys were nowhere to be seen. Elwyn and Blitzen searched and searched, but the snow was deep. At last they gave up. So much for Christmas, said Elwyn. At least we tried, said Blitzen. Hey, what was that? What was what? Said Elwyn. I heard a sound, said Blitzen, and they listened. Then they both heard the sound, coming from under a snowdrift. Cuckoo, cuckoo. The clock, cried Elwyn. He started digging in the snow. In a moment he had found the sack. Let's go, said Blitzen. It's getting late. What do we do? Said Elwyn. Get my old harness from that peg at the back of the stable, said Blitzen. The reins are on the shelf. What about these bells? Said Elwyn. Want them too? Might as well do things right, said Blitzen. This will probably be the last Christmas ride for both of us. Elwyn climbed onto the toboggan behind the toys. Ready when you are, he said. Well, what do you say? Said Blitzen. Oh, you mean on Blitzen, said Elwyn. That's correct, said Blitzen. On Blitzen, cried Elwyn. Blitzen broke into a run. The bells began to jingle. The toboggan went zigzagging across the snow. Soon Blitzen's hooves were no longer touching the snow. The toboggan swung into the sky. Hang on, Elwyn, called Blitzen. We're on our way. After a while, they saw a city down below. Santa's sleigh and the reindeer were standing on a rooftop. Blitzen landed the toboggan next to them. Look who's here, said Donner. It's Blitzen. I can't believe it, said Dancer. How did you get here? I know the route, said Blitzen. And he's very fast, said Elwyn. Just then Santa Claus popped out of a chimney. Well, my goodness, he said, Blitzen and Elwyn, we brought some extra toys, said Elwyn, if it isn't too late. Never too late for toys, said Santa. He pointed to the east. You deliver in that direction, and we'll deliver over here. He jumped onto his sleigh. On Prancer, he cried. On Dancer, on Donner, and Josephine, said Josephine. Of course, said Santa Claus. On Josephine. Santa's sleigh soared into the sky. Ho, 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 he cried. On Blitzen, said Elwyn. We haven't missed Christmas after all. How about ho, 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 called Blitzen. Ho, ho, said Elwyn. Louder, said Blitzen. Louder and jollier. Ho, 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 cried Elwyn as they galloped through the night. Well, I'm glad Elwyn got to deliver all those toys he made. Thank you for joining me for Bluebell Storytime, and be sure to come in the library and look for our little elf, Booker, and see what he's gotten into. Thank you.